Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from central British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, oh, we know where Canada is, and in British Columbia on the west coast, right? Right. And that's where we are, in the center of British Columbia. Absolute beautiful, beautiful country. And today we have a very, very interesting guest. Her name is Jayla Siciliano. And Jayla is a Shark Tank entrepreneur turned real estate investor, excels in building brands, teams, and products. She is the CEO in a bio-coastal luxury short-term rental company. I want to know more about that. I like that. While she is also host on Seed Money podcast, where she is on a mission to help early stage entrepreneurs and their ideas into reality. And she has gone with over 25 years of experience in both corporate and entrepreneurial environments. Jayla has worked in global brands such as Diesel and a number of other ones, Burton Snowboards, and on and on and on. An amazing, amazing background. She has gone through, as I have, through all the ups and downs, through which obviously laid the foundation for the success she has today.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun to connect and be here.
So tell us about your past. And so where were you from originally? And then how did you go through all the, obviously your entrepreneurship? You had such an interesting life, including the Shark Tank and a number of other things. How did it all happen? And what was the road towards that? And where are you today?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think I've never been afraid to pivot. And I think that's evident now as I've kind of, progressed in my career. I grew up in New Hampshire in a small town. My dad had a small business, a surveying business. And my parents were always home. He worked from home office. My mom supported the business. And so I always saw that I grew up around him having all this flexibility and never having to take time off, that kind of thing. Sure, he would work late nights sometimes in the office, but he was always around. We had lunch together, that kind of thing. So I didn't know that was a career, though, having your own business. I was just told, go to college, you study history, English, medicine. I just wasn't really told you could do all these other creative things. And so I ended up in school for physical therapy because I had some injuries in high school. And I got in my first biochem class and I was like, oh, no way. My brain does not work this way. I can't do this chemistry. So I switched out of that and I ended up coming out here to UCSB for school in Santa Barbara. So all the way across the country.
USSB stands for?
University California, Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you came to there, yes?
Yeah, came here and I was still on the track that I had to have one of these, traditional jobs. I just didn't know any better. No one told me. I didn't have any advisors telling me to do something else. And I ended up studying abroad in Costa Rica. I really sparked a love for traveling internationally, have since, that's my number one priority every year is going to a new country. And I got out of school and I got my first job and I was just I remember driving to work going, this is it. This is what I have to do for the rest of my life. It was so depressing. I just couldn't believe I did all that schoolwork and now I had to go sit at this desk and I was bored. It was like a telecom company. I didn't have enough work to do. And so it was a real eye opener. And I just was like, there's got to be more to this. So I ended up getting a job with Diesel, which is a little bit more aligned with, I had a creative side. I had been sewing as a hobby all through high school.
What is Diesel all about?
Oh, Diesel footwear.
Okay.
So the Italian denim brand Diesel, we had the license to do their footwear, and I was in product development.
Interesting,
there.
Right?
Yeah, and it was a super fun. Again, this is kind of a dream job, right? So I was here, and I was traveling to Asia, traveling all over. inspiration trips, shopping. It was a lot of fun. But it was still a 9 to 5. And then I thought, well, maybe I'd like the snowboarding industry. So
So you were
I got
still
a,
fairly young then, right? Were you in your 20s?
yeah, I was, what was I, 23,
Yeah.
24.
Wow.
Yep. So then I went to Burton Snowboards, and this is like really the dream job because I was getting 60 days snowboarding on the mountain before work, traveling all over the world, um, working with the pro riders, developing products, super fun, but it still didn't feel like enough. And I was just like,
My
I
God.
just, yeah, I don't want to do this. So I had this idea, and I was turning 30 at the time. And I remember thinking it's now or never. And now I realize that is so not true. Like, I guarantee you I will start some new thing, 10, 20 years from now. Like, but at the time I felt that way. And I just was like, it's now or never. I got to quit my job and I just got to go for it. So my idea, having been working for these, very fashion, action sports companies, I've always been really active and healthy, and they were very heavy drinking environments. I think that the attitude towards drinking has shifted quite a bit, especially in the last 5 years. But then it was like, you have to drink when you go out, with everybody.
Drink
And
means alcohol.
alcohol, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't wake up. I weigh 105 pounds. I can't like drink all night and still go to the gym in the morning. So I started making wine spritzers, and I was like, okay, I can sip on this and not feel hungover. Why can't I order this? There's a huge gap in the market. You had the wine coolers of the 80s, and now you have all this, regular wine and beer, but there's no lighter, healthier option that's not full of sugar. So I, completely naive, like beyond naive, had no idea what I was getting into, quit my job thinking, oh, I'll just get this off the ground in a year. I'll sell it for $100 million, and then I'll like figure out something else. This will be great.
And that was switcher, you called it, but was it a drink?
Yeah, a wine spritzer. Yep.
And what is it? It is a non-alcohol. Does it
No,
have a
it's
lot of
actually,
sugar in it or?
yeah, no, it's 6% alcohol. So
Right.
it's real like California wine, mineral water, no added sugar, a tiny bit of natural flavor. So it just had a really light, crisp, you know, wine. For a wine drinker, it's a lighter, healthier option. They're really popular in Europe. We just haven't adopted it. Well, now we have, but this was in 2007. We had not, adopted that
You were
here.
nearly too early.
I was totally too early. And I learned a hard lesson on market timing, and being first is not always best.
Timing is everything.
I totally agree. Yep, I totally agree. Yeah, it's crazy. But there's no regrets. It is what it is.
What an experience,
Oh my
Jayla.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, take us further then in Switzer. What happened then? Did it not? So you got it off the ground, and then where are we in terms of? I'm always sensitive to, as you are. In 2006, I had acquired a company. I have four silos. The one is lumber manufacturing. The other one is warehousing, distribution, and logistics, and the third one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial, and the fourth one is media. And so my lumber side, I had just made a fairly major acquisition in Alberta in 2005. And then I thought, oh my God, in 2006, because lumber related is related to housing starts, is relating to mortgage rates, is relating to the feeling of the market, and it was going down, and I sold that company within a year,
Wow.
and I
Wow.
didn't survive. But obviously, what I'm pointing towards is that in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, we had a major recession approaching depression, I say a lot of times. And I said, I've seen it all over the 50 years that I've been in business. I will have never seen anything that I did as I did then until now. This
Wow.
succeeds everything by a challenge far beyond. So
Wow.
take me back to Switzer. When was it the timing and what happened to that concept? Did it, you were too early, it didn't go forward. What did you do?
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. I quit my job in the fall of 2007, and the 2008, market crash, crisis, recession, depression, like you said, hit probably, what was that? Not very long after, within 6 months. And I'm sitting there, writing my little business plan and going, wow, I don't have a job. I was only 30 and, I was having fun snowboarding. So it's not like I was saving a ton of money and investing a ton of money. I was spending and having fun. So I saw my savings dwindling, and now all of a sudden, it's kind of panic out there in the business world. But I was just so determined to do it. I had told my friends and family I was doing this thing. They told me I was crazy, and I just had to prove them wrong. So I was not quitting no matter what. So I went out and then I quickly went through my own savings and cashed in my 401k. I was working odd jobs. Went back to bartending, which is a hard pill to swallow after you've had this like kind of fun, fancy corporate job. You really have to swallow your pride and do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And so I spent about 18 months knocking on investors' doors. I had, my business plan, pitch deck, everything. I've never done this before. I did simultaneously go back for my MBA because I was like, I need to meet wealthy people. I didn't grow up around wealthy people. And if I go get my MBA, I'll network like crazy and I'll find the people to fund my business. And that's exactly what I did. So I said, I'm going to go to every networking event possible. And I got hundreds and hundreds of no's. I pitched to thousands of investors. And then I finally got closed my first round of $500,000 to launch the company. And this is, again, I'm a female with no experience in the industry, no track record as an entrepreneur, in a recession. I had a lot working against me here, and a new category where everyone's like, why would someone pay for less alcohol? That doesn't make sense, So it was pretty miraculous that I actually did close that first round. And then is where the real test of entrepreneurship came in. I was all excited. We went to bottle our first production run and lost $100,000 worth of inventory. The bottler that would take us on, there weren't many. They wouldn't, everybody was giving us, no, sorry, come back later. They took us on, and little did I know they were in a downward spiral and they were out of business 6 months later. And I had spent $100,000 on inventory and no product to sell. And this was one of the biggest challenges I've had to overcome. You have to dig really deep. I had to start like really doing yoga and breathing. I'd always been into the fast sports, and I was like, I got to get grounded and like really figure out what am I going to do here. And an advisor told me to go on the show Shark Tank, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go on that show. Like, so I was going to meet him for lunch, and I was like, I just need to apply so that he won't ask me again.
So
So
Shark Tank is what?
Shark Tank is a show here in the US, and it's been, man, I think it's on 25 plus seasons. This was season 5. And you go out there and you pitch in front of these investors. I think there were 5. And I mean, they grill you. You are just like in the tank. And I knew from someone who had been on there that you better practice like crazy. And so I watched every episode. I wrote down every question they asked. I rehearsed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And if you get a deal, you're getting a little bit of a celebrity investor also who can open up doors and connections. So it was kind of my Hail Mary, to be honest. I was like, it's going to be really hard for me to raise more money for inventory. I just got to get on the show, hope somebody believes in it. And I ended up getting a deal with Mark Cuban. So it was
Mark
good.
Cuban is whom? He was one of the 5, obviously, on the Shark Tank. Who is he? What made, you wanted to get a guy, girl, whatever, that is when he calls somebody, they pick up the phone. If
Yeah,
I call somebody as being a nobody, then I'm not saying that I'm something now, but then you need somebody that picks that when he calls, they pick up the phone. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, that is exactly what it was. Yeah, so he doesn't have any experience in the alcohol industry, but he had exactly what you're talking about. He had a lot of experience, with startups. He's a billionaire. He's very, outspoken, active in the media, was the owner of the, Maverick basketball team. I think he just sold his ownership there. But yeah, he's kind of a celebrity billionaire investor guy. And so he could bring a lot of awareness to the product and open some doors for us. And he did that, which was great. But it's an interesting thing when you go from begging people to give you, distributors and stores to take your product, and then you air on a show like that, and all of a sudden everybody's calling you. It's really hard to say no. And another hard lesson learned is we were going too broad, too fast, spreading ourselves too thin. And I just completely high blood pressure, burnt myself out like you wouldn't believe, which was not fun.
So another lesson to be learned for the people watching us from your experience and mine, that right sizing is likely the most important part of entrepreneurship. At what point do you go? You may be very good at this level and very effective, and then it becomes a question, how far do you go? If you don't go far enough, there's too much expense and not enough revenue, or if you go too far, it means you have to change your management team. And then if you go too far, then all of a sudden it goes out of control.
Yep. Yeah, it's a delicate balance. It is really tough, and I think you have to pull emotion out of it, right? To do that properly, I would say probably the best business people can step back and look at their company and take the emotion out of it to strategize, right? Exactly what you're saying.
Well, the more you go through this, the less emotion becomes involved. I always
Yeah.
say, even at 85, you and me have something. I just have to tell that to
Oh yeah, yeah.
our fellas from and persons from around the world that are watching us, because we have over 1 million subscribers, as you can see here on YouTube,
Amazing.
and then you are nearly my 500th podcast. Is that the it is an important day before, 2 days before. We have in common, I was born November the 1st, 1940. And you also celebrate November the 1st as your holiday, as your birthday.
Yep. 77 over here. So
77?
yep, 1977.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, and so the other part, Jayla, is important is that some people are watching me and they say, you're always wearing a black head, and I do. But today, it's a little bit too tight for me, this one. Actually, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. But so, in any event, today was a special day because if the people watching us saying, well, why are you watching this one? What is this? These are the Toronto JLOs, and they are the baseball club that is doing the finals with the Dodgers baseball in LA. Although last night they won the third out of seven against the Dodgers, and tonight they are in Toronto, and I believe they will become the world champion baseball, in my opinion. And so, and we'll see that tonight. And that's what I'm doing tonight. And with all my friends watching us in the United States, they are our friends. And sometimes we have things that we differ about it. One of them is no, we will not become the 51st state. No, we are not. But we will be your friends through all the ups and downs, and we will remain that way. We always have been that way. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Can you imagine the party tonight in Toronto?
Oh my God! And the one young fella, 22 years old, I forget his last name now, but an amazing, amazing baseball player. For all the people that are listening and watching us, watch it on YouTube or watch it someplace. It's going to be amazing, and the stadium will go crazy when this starts. But I have a really, really positive feeling about it. So
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm rooting for Toronto, even though I'm near LA, but rooting for Toronto tonight. And I'm not
yeah.
just saying that because I'm on the
Yeah, I know,
yeah,
and you already told me that before, so and
yeah.
I appreciate it. Okay, so Jayla, there we go again. Then saying that, so with all that's going on in your life, and so this thing really got to you with the, there you raised the money, and then all of a sudden, what happened is because of the exposure that you got on the sharks and the positive feedback, including an investor, the phone started ringing, and all of a sudden, you were not ready for that.
Yeah.
And then decisions were made that were not necessarily in an orderly fashion towards looking towards, because the most delicate part at that point is growth expansion in an orderly fashion. That's the most critical part. At that point, you brought it all the way to where you need to be, the most difficult part to get to. But then the next most difficult part is managing expansion or growth.
Yep.
What happened?
Totally. So, going back to market timing, I think is another important part. At this point, so I had a product in a new category and it is very expensive. It's hard enough to get any consumer product to sell through. But when you have a new product, a new category, and you're trying to educate an industry and the end consumer on the benefits of your product, it's very slow and expensive. And so if you imagine, the the wall of wine bottles at the store, they all look the same and it's very hard to stand out no matter what you do. And there was no section for a lighter, healthier wine. So people go to the store, there's zero ability to have someone to really discover your product. So we were having to spend a lot of money on tastings and just could not get profitable. Mark was financing inventory loans for us and we were paying those back, but it just wasn't enough. We needed, honestly, we needed like millions of dollars more to really even make a dent. And I was getting really burnt out. Fortunately, I had amazing investors. They were all very supportive. And at this point, we had put off. My husband and I did get married, but we had put off having kids. We had put off. I missed so many friends' birthdays, baby showers, weddings. My entire life was this company, and my husband's always been one of my biggest supporters, and cheering me on. But at a certain point, it can, I just was like, this is going to start to wear on our marriage. I never have time to go to dinner. I'm always bailing at the last minute. And it just wasn't fair to him. That wasn't, and also honestly, my own health. My great grandmother died at 46 of a heart attack, and I have heart disease on my mom's side. And I was like, I had known another woman who died of a heart attack, an entrepreneur. And I was like, this is like real health stuff here. And I've always been active and healthy. And here I was doing this thing that was just crushing my health. So I talked to my investors and they said, it's not for lack of hard work. It's, the market is just, not ready for it and you're under resourced. And when they put it like very simply like that, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. So I made the decision. I was going to exit out. I had two buyers lined up. They both fell through for various reasons. One of them, I went on another show called Beyond the Tank, where Shark Tank follows up with you. And they were, highlighting this whole negotiation back and forth. They didn't get the equipment. Long story short, both of those fell through. I had to go through the painful process of winding down operations, which is not fun. I mean, it's really like grieving a death when that's like your baby and you have to let it go. It's very
Absolutely.
hard.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. So at that point, we decided to start a family. So I had my son. I took a year off. I was like, I don't even know what I'm good at. Like this, you're wearing so many hats. Your confidence takes a hit. Not everybody, but I think a lot of people,
Yeah, no
feel that
question.
way when they go through that. Um, and so I was like, I don't ever want to start another business. But if I do, it'll be a service-based business, but I don't ever I'll be totally happy just collecting a paycheck. So I went and got a job at a local a legendary music company here in Santa Barbara as their VP of
So,
sales and marketing.
so just stepping back a little bit now, you have a son and you have a daughter?
No, just one son. We
One
just have
son.
one
What's
kid,
his name?
Barrick, Berrick.
ICK. How old is he?
He's 8, about
Eight
to be
now.
9.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Derek,
Oh my gosh.
and your husband still there?
Yep.
And what is his name?
His name is James, and he has the same birthday as we do.
Oh, can you and Jay, that is my Jay. So we have 3 J's.
Oh my gosh, that's
Is
crazy.
that what qualified him for saying, okay, I'll date you, but no, I don't want to go any further? And then all of a sudden, while you were having dinner, and he's trying to make a pass at you and all that other kind of stuff, and he said to you, when is your birthday? And you said, November the 1st. He said, so am I. You said, how can you? So from there and then, this was meant to be.
That is pretty much, yep, exactly how it worked.
So, Jayla, the other thing, coming back to business and all the people that aspire to entrepreneurship, and a lot of them think, and there's me, I've gone through this for the last 50, 60. Academically, I was not a success story. I was born in Holland, as I said, November the 1st, 1940. During the war years, saw far too much that I should not have seen. Still have the effect of PTSD, and the inner child. Got counseling for that when I was 50, actually. And then academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3, and I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said to my parents, who are beautiful people, they said, what are you going to do with this guy? And some people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So my dad had a friend that had a furniture factory, and said, obviously some of the teachers then, and I love teachers, don't mistake that. My youngest daughter is a teacher, and she's very, very good, very, very committed. But the teachers then did not always understand the neurodiversity issues that maybe are playing a role, PTSD in the child, whatever it is. And they said, well, John will not amount to much, so he is just not bright enough for any of that. And usually what they want in school is that if they did tests, then there was a standard thing in school that I went to. They had anything from a 1 to a 10, and they would say Peter had an 8, and then Margaret had a 9, and then this one had that, and then John has usually a 0. And so it was a big joke around the class. But I always knew, that I left school when I was 12 and a half years old, started working in a furniture factory, but I always knew I was just as smart as the other ones inside of me. Not smarter then, but as the others. And then I had the dream, which is somewhat special to me now because of the time of year it is and all the other things. And the Remembrance Day is November the 11th. And usually during that week, I do at least presentations about what does it mean, the 2 minutes of silence in different schools that, I do presentations to. But that part to me has always been very, very important to, when we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, I knew from that point forward as 5 years old that as I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes. And I did when I was 24. And then the other part was that I wanted to build a lumber mill. And I did that as well. But when I came here in July of 1965, I took a flight to Montreal. I wanted to start with nothing. So I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and very little money. I flew into Montreal, and so then took the train across Canada from, from Montreal to Vancouver. It was 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. And so I came off the train in Vancouver, went to the immigration office. I didn't speak English. I didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And fortunately, there was a German fellow. I could speak some German because we were born 10 minutes from the border with Germany. So I knew some German. And so I told him, I want to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George. Prince George is 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers. And that's where I still am today, although I have places in Victoria and I do a lot of business around North America, but here is where I am today. And so, and although it's a bit foggy out now, but within 2 blocks from here, where the Greyhound station used to be, I still remember that. That's in July of 1965. It came off the bus here, and I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. And I couldn't speak language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. But what I did have is attitude. I've always been like that, even to the worst of times, even all by my lonely. I always was positive, and I avoid, if you're negative, stay away from me. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. I still always do that. And then work ethic. No one works harder than me, and that's still the case today. In all the things that I do, even at 85, I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so, and that's what I do. And so, and it's the land of opportunity. And and I went through all the ups and downs, and so have seen it all, done it all, been right on the bottom several times, and saying, all the things that you're talking about, I went through that more than once, and still, even today, we're still struggling because of all the things, tariffs, duties, and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't keep me awake at life, because as long as I'm healthy and fit, I'll survive one way or the other. And what I have, but others don't have, is all of this experience. And my first book that I wrote is Against All Odds. That's what it's about. Not about the success of John, but all the challenges. And then the other part that I just wanted to mention to you, I wrote a book about this. $1 Million is all about communication skills. Wow. And the reason that these guys became billionaires that I'm talking about here is because they became effective communicators. And so that is the key. That's either they had it or they acquired it. That is, at the end of the day, what makes those people successful. And I felt that is so critical, communication skills, that is lacking in our educational system right up to the time of university, same from kindergarten all the way up, critically important, and relationships and all the things that you do. And one of the things that you mentioned that and with the loan sharks, but came through my mind over and over again as I listened to you is you're a very effective and a very good communicator. And that is part of the thing that made you as successful as you are, going through all the things. And then the other part that I recognized in you, Jayla, is that, which I tell people, is that those that may believe that entrepreneurship is mainly people that become successful and their focus is then in bringing money to the bank and planning holidays. No, it isn't. And then the other part that you touched, which is so important, and I know it happened to me as well, is that in relationships, entrepreneurship, and especially if you are driven like I was and you are, and still am actually even now at 85, is that can be very hard on relationships, and you must have an understanding partnership, whatever that is, to, if you want to become successful, that part is critically important. You must find the time for focusing on that part of your life. If you don't, and you related to it and you mention it, how critical it was at some critical points in your life, that at least for that part you may have made, like I did, some errors in choices that I made, but that choice that I made was critically important and still is today. So that having somebody that is supportive in your life through all the ups and downs, and that was critical. And obviously with James in your life, that happened.
Hmm. Yeah. Gosh, yeah, so much. There are two things I just love to touch on one thing really quickly. But yeah, I always feel like, should I have pushed farther, with that company? But I'm like, no, I chose a path. I chose my personal happiness, which I don't think I'll ever regret that choice. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's important. But real quick, I wanted to mention, I just this morning, I opened a letter I got in the mail from my son's school. And I have your books here, which I loved, all of your books. And oh, I'm missing one. I think I was reading it out there. But my husband has ADHD, and I suspect my son does. We haven't had him tested, but we just recently switched him to a new school that is more, creative. And I loved it. It was great for it. So I don't know. I think I probably have some ADHD, but my husband, like, fully diagnosis wise does. So we switched my son to this new school, and it's amazing. It's like, theater and all these things, Spanish, all these electives. And I got a letter in the mail. They did some testing and it rates them, 3, which they don't do a lot. They don't do as much testing as public schools. That's one of the reasons we went there. But his 3 ratings came back: language, math, and reading. Math and reading were below average quite a bit, which I kind of know. Reading is that he just hates reading, which is fine. I am not a huge, I don't read hours. I more listen to stuff nowadays anyway. But his language was like way above average. And then at the bottom of the sheet, it said, if you'd like to get them help to improve basically their weaknesses, reach out. And in my perspective, I'm like, let's just lean into what he's really good at. His vocabulary's through the roof. He's a great communicator. He's very expressive. And I'm like, rather than trying to make him feel bad for not being great at math or great at reading, let's tell him he's amazing at communicating and lean into that and
Exactly.
focus on that strength. Because I think all through school, we're told to fix our weaknesses. Even in entrepreneurship, it's like, oh, I need to get better at sales. I need to get better at marketing. It's like, no, what are your strengths, and get better at those things. And I love you
Exactly.
touch on that in your passion book too, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm totally with you. I think your books are amazing. Yes, that one. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting that you say that about communicating. But I don't think I was always a good communicator. I think it's been practicing over time, and just you get better and better and better, kind of thing.
What I found with me a lot of times, Jayla, is that I lacked self confidence.
Mm.
And that came from the years before, more in myself than anything else. And then deep down, I knew I had it, but then I put myself into a lot of positions that challenged me beyond where it could be to go leave Holland with a suitcase, 3 books, and 2 sets of clothes, no money really, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, brought me to Vancouver, then to Prince George. Then when I came off the bus, standing with my suitcase, my $25.47, and say I already had a good job in Holland. I had already gone into management ranks, and then, but I had to do this. Because the challenge that I had is, who am I? And I was challenged with that part, and then started as a cleanup man, then a lumber pilot, walked to work, hour and a half to work, and walk back, and standing in front of the Salvation Army, too proud to go in, and then somebody said to me, "Hey John, can I buy you a coffee?" I said, in which I never do. I said, "Do you mind if I get an apple pie?" And because I hadn't eaten in 2 days,
Oh my
So
goodness.
those kind of things, so and so I pushed myself to the limit, and I'm not always sure that that is the right thing. And then the other part about it is what changed my life and directions is obviously the war years. The other part, the decision to go to Canada, that changed my life, and then started with nothing that had a major impact. The other one that was something that affected me is that at one point here in Prince George already, I went into a bookstore, and in 1997 I picked up a book, and I still have the book. This is the actual, I will show it to you. And I
No
picked
way.
it up, and I don't know why, and I read it, and so the book is Driven to Distraction.
Oh, wow.
It's written by Dr. Edward M. Hollowell, medical doctor, professor, very, very knowledgeable around the world. And he wrote the book in 1993. I bought it in January 1997 here. I was already here for 32 years, nearly 30 years ago that I bought it. I still have it. I wrote, and the book is about ADHD and dyslexia.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh my God, that's me."
Wow.
And I wrote in the book in January of 1997. Now I finally know who I am.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
and so so from there on in, the more I never even heard about ADHD, and the more I read it, and the more I learned about it, and then went to the Google and checked out on it, and the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at it, then I said to myself, it's a superpower.
Mm.
And so after 5 years, and already I then was 62 years old. When I picked up the book, I was 57. It took me 5 years before I would go to my doc that delivered our two daughters and was a friend. And he said to me, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD." And so we checked it out, and I do. And so that explained a lot of things in my life, and that brought me back to grade seven and doing all those other things. And so, and the more I looked at it, I became a superpower in my mind, and it unlocked a lot of other things for me about writing and about managing my companies and understanding me. The other part that helped me immensely is that happened in 1990. I was not a good communicator, and I could interact with some of the people in my company, three or four, but not beyond that. I did not have the confidence. And then somebody said to me, an ex-sister-in-law actually said to me, "I want you to go with me to an organization called Toastmasters." I said, "What's that all about?" He said, "About communication skills." I said, "Are you going to ask me questions?" He said, "No, you just sit there and watch, and then you can see what you think, and if you like it, you can come back." And so I sat there, and I said, "As long as they don't ask me any questions, I'll go." So halfway through the meeting, they said, "Hey, John, tell us all about you." I said, "Oh my God, I'll never go back here." But I did. And I could, so I had such a struggle with standing on my feet and reacting to questions that I could have crawled out of there on my hands and knees, but I didn't. I stayed the course. I stayed there for 10 years, and it brought me to become a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level in Toastmasters, and it changed my life. And
Wow.
combination with ADHD, and then looking back. But if I look back to my training, I always was good at numbers. That's what I did. I was not a good reader, and still am not today, but I was a good writer. And
Mm.
and so and those were my qualities. And after all of that and going through all of these things, I felt I had an obligation to help others.
Hmm.
And I still do that today.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think I'm so thankful that there is so much more awareness around that, because I think a lot of people and a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, do struggle with that. And it's kind of the polar opposite of that traditional success route. So I think it really can hinder confidence, which is terrible because it's really just people are different. We're just all different.
So you are my podcast number 486, where I'm hosting, and then I do guesting with another 200 or so. But my podcast number 203 is actually a podcast that I did with Mr. Hollowell.
Oh, cool.
So it's podcast number On the Brink 203. Interesting podcast to watch for anybody thinking about that. Everybody will be touched by ADHD in some form or fashion, either by association. I get it over and over and over again that people say, I think I got it too, blah, 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 and all of those kind of things. Is that so the podcast with Dr. Halliwell was saying that by the time I read the book and got more to find out about it, I thought that maybe frequency of occurrence initially, maybe between 6 and 10%, I don't know, But the more I found out about it, I said to Dr. Halliwell, it's probably, maybe it's even 20%. He said to me, no, John, it's probably more than 25%. I agree with him. Now, the other thing that I found as well is with all the times that I've been involved in businesses and board of directors and met a lot of successful people, and successful is the operative here, that were very, very good in the things that they're doing, entrepreneurship or management individuals, that I believe I suggested to Dr. Halliwell that probably 50% of them are ADHD. He said to me, no, John, probably 75%. I agree with him of the successful ones. And so, so to me, it has then become important that to write about it more and then combine it as you did with health and fitness. That's why I wrote this big, Living Young, Dying Old. And that's a picture of me. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And I like it because it's all about quality of life.
So impressive. I love it. It's amazing. It's the mindset it takes to do what you've done and be in competitive bodybuilding, never mind be, you know what I mean, like excelling at it, but to do that as we age. And I don't know, you tell me, but to me, it just seems like mindset, right? And it's like, which
it is.
So it's just so impressive. And I think, I don't know what it is where people give up, or not, but I don't know. Anyway, huge inspiration. So I think it's just incredible that you've done that.
So what I find, Jayla, is a lot of time, for me, it's not so much being a bodybuilder, but it's more quality of life. And I know the most precious thing that we have is our body, our mind, our body, and our physical fitness. And so the elements, we all get from time to time a shock in life that changes us to make directions, either in business or personal lives, as you already explained as well, as you had with James and your first son, so that there are particular points in life that all of a sudden we realize that the direction we are going is not good for us, maybe, or for us as a combination. And so in my case, I had a case of diverticulitis, and that is, I'm not a doc, obviously, but people say, I got pain on my right side. That could well be appendix. And then on the left side, it could potentially, it's the colon, maybe it's diverticulitis. And if you go to the doc, then, again, I'm not a doc, but they would say, well, change your diet, make greens, blah, blah, blah. In my case, it ruptured. And so the toxins go to your body. You have a limited amount of time before it starts attacking the other organs. And I already was over that limit. And so I got an operation. They took 20 centimeters out of my colon. That was in 2008, 17 years ago. And then the doc said the following morning, you came this close. And so I knew I had to do something. My wife is a vegetarian, so I was okay, but not as close as I should be. So I became vegetarian, probably 80-20. Now I'm probably 90-10. And I started going to the gym. And I was also one of those already at that age, and again, 68 years old already. I knew I had to go do more structural exercises, work with a trainer, because before I was doing like everybody else doing. At the end of the year, they're going to do this, that, and that. And then we're going to go get a membership to the gym. And then 2 weeks later, we can find 100 reasons why we're too busy to go to the gym. So I knew I had to do that. So I started changing my diet, becoming more proactive about mentally and physically, go to the gym. And then after I did that for about 6 years, people said to me, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Really? Yeah." And so that's what I did. Hence,
Oh my gosh.
and hence all of this, right? So, but a lot of times what I hear from people saying, even in their 40s or 50s, say, "I'm too old for that. I'm too this, that, and so on." That gets to the point that you made, is that determination and understanding critically what is important, and then not giving up and structuring it in such a way that you will get to the point, and especially with fitness, with diet. I like my diet that I have now. I enjoy it. I love going to the gym, and I train hard, actually, but I like it and I enjoy it. And in addition to that, is even at 85, I'm pretty fit.
It's amazing. Yeah, it is a habit. I agree. I just started doing more strength training. I did for years and then got out of it, but it just feels so good.
So that, and time is going quick here in a way. We can go for at least another hour. So a couple more questions that I have for you. How has your definition of success evolved since you started your journey?
Well, yeah, it's pretty much done a 180. So what I do now, let's see, I had that corporate job for 5 years, and then I realized I overcorrected
Yeah.
and I didn't want to work for someone else. So I ended up doing what I, had mentioned way back, and I started a service-based company. Kind of by accident. We bought our first short-term rental. It was early COVID, and we just needed to get out of the house, and we bought a place in wine country and started renting it as an Airbnb, and the management company was horrible. So I decided to do it. And my goal with growing this business has been working 20 hours a week, having time to work out. And also, I love walking, go for a walk during the day. I love an hour long walk is my Zen time of the day. Being able to pick my son up at 3 o'clock from school, spend time with him, make cookies if we want. I'm not tied to my phone the whole time. And then be able to travel. So we did last summer, we were in Europe we were in Sicily actually for 4 weeks. And, we went to Belize, we're going to Fiji. We really love traveling. And so my definition of success, I love money. Money is an amazing tool. I want to make more of it, but it's not defining, how I live my life. Whereas before it was all about, trying to grow this business to make more money, make more money. And the funny thing is, there's tons of money out there to be made, and especially real estate can be very lucrative, but I don't really feel like I'm doing a lot to help the world. So part of success is also for me, just feeling good in what I'm doing and giving back and helping people. And that's why I started this podcast, Seed Money, to help early stage entrepreneurs, because most of the content out there is from the VC venture capital perspective. And a lot of times they make it so intimidating, and you feel like you're this outsider, and you're just like, I don't live in Silicon Valley. I don't identify with this whole venture capital scene. And they're preaching, if you don't hit $100 million, you are not successful. And I totally disagree with that.
Me too.
And I think it's a crime that we are, imposing that on all these entrepreneurs who are out there trying to live their dream and create products and create sustainable businesses. So I guess my definition of success now is really spending time with family, having flexibility, making money, of course, and really helping people and giving back as much as I can. And then also referencing, your book, I think it was the passion one, is doing new things and different things is what really keeps me like motivated and excited. I love starting a new project. The podcast was a very hard one for me. I really had to overcome some personal, whatever stuff to put myself out there. But the second I did it, it was fine. It was like all this leading up to it was like, and then the second you do it, it's like, oh, no big deal. This is so much fun. I love doing it. So yeah, my definition of success has changed quite a bit, I would say.
And that brings me to, if somebody questions themselves whether they should follow their passion, what is your suggestion?
I mean, I don't think you can ever go wrong following your passion. I do think that it depends on where you're at in your life. That would be my response. If you're in your early 20s, I say do what I did and go for it. It can't hurt. Like shoot for the moon, go for the, big thing. But if you've got a family and you're older, you're like have bills to pay and a little bit less flexibility, maybe combine your passion with, something that can be building steady income on the side. Cause it's not fun to be in that super financially stressed place that a lot of startups have find themselves in. Or your passion, I also believe if you're not an entrepreneur at heart, you can have a job and you can really just you got to carve out time for your passion. I think we waste so much time during the day, especially with our phones and all kinds of crap. There is time in the day to do the things we love to do. We just have to make the time for them. So I think people should follow their passion. I don't think you ever regret that.
I agree with you. And then the other point that I find, and I know you're a speaker and you presenter too, in a lot of cases, as well as very active, obviously, as a podcaster, is that in the presentation that I do to young people in particular, what I find after I do presentations is that, and especially in high schools, colleges, universities even, saying to some of the people, what are you going to do, when you finished here? What is the objective? And a lot of them say, I don't know. And I believe it is important for people in a general sense, respectfully, that they get a general idea as where are my strengths and what direction should I go. And the reason that I wrote the book, Following Your Passion, and Living the Dream, is saying that there are, and I saw that on a US television station, that 75, and I think Canada is the same, 75% of the people that work do not like their jobs. And 70% of those 75 are looking for another job. And I say that is very, very important because I know it for myself. I always thought about lumber manufacturing and the I'm going to be 85 on Saturday together with you and James. So that I started working virtually, 85, 12 and a half years, 71 and a half years, nearly 72 years. And I've been working and saying, okay, John, finding your passion, living the dream. Are you, John, still living the dream? I am. Every day, every day I go outside and say, it's paradise. How can I, so that part is important. And so the other part that I find with young people in particular, that male and female alike, they're not happy with who they are. They physically don't think this doesn't look right, that doesn't look right, this doesn't look right, I should be wearing this and that. And I'm not saying that is, and I again respectfully suggest that, and I've gone through all of that as well, that there is only one of you on this earth, and you are special. And so not better than, but you are who you are. And I believe that part is, and then the other part, and you touched on that as well, give back to your community. And I believe that's important. And find that balance between entrepreneurship, between relationships, your children, and then obviously the community, and then find that balance, which is a bit of a challenge. Obviously, we both have gone through this, but it is very, very important, and then it can be very, very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. I think the comparing yourself to other people is such a slippery slope and dangerous, path to go down. And I think it's taken me even a long time to get to there, and it's still evolving, where my path is my path. It's not less or more than anyone else's. It's just my path. And it is what it is. And I think sometimes people also, they're afraid to change. And really, I think we really do control like everything we can do. We can always change and pivot and, not be afraid to what anyone else thinks. There's so much power in that, not easy to do. We've all been there, it can be hard, especially with the world we're living in now. But yeah, I think if we can own, like you said, who we are as much as possible. And the funny thing I find, like with aging and looks and stuff, I keep telling myself as I'm approaching 50, in 10 years, I'm going to wish I looked like I do right now. So I am going to love how I look right now and enjoy it, because in 10 years, I'll wish I looked like this. So, the whole like regretting or comparing yourself is just such a waste of time.
And the same at 85, you can feel good about yourself as well as I do. And,
Totally.
and say, yeah, and anybody else can go that direction and saying, feel positive as looking forward as to who you are. So the other part, before we leave, the hour went by far too quickly. Jayla, do you have a contact that we can either watch your podcast, or what do you have available to share with the people from around the world that are watching us?
Oh, yeah. If you go, so seedmoneypodcast.com, from there, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or the podcast. Just look it up on any podcast platform or on YouTube, Seed Money Podcast, and my name.
And for all the people watching us and listening to Jayla and myself, and if you like what we are doing, both of us are doing, watch our podcast, both Jayla's and mine. Subscribe to us, because that will give us encouragement. Share it with others, like it, give us comments about what else we can do. The other part that I do in my podcast, they will be unedited. I leave it as it is what it is, and I release it within 2 hours. And so for all those people from around the world that are baseball fans, today is an important day, and Toronto is the Blue Jays will become world champion today. And here's my hat. There we are.
And for yay, I'm excited to watch it.
Jayla, it was an amazing podcast. Let's make sure we stay in touch.
Yes, thank you. You're such an inspiration, and so appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jayla. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.